Hi folks, I'm Nathan with Two Guys in a Ride, and today Rob and I are out here at with Randy and today Mike, and we're at Randy's collection, and we got a beautiful car behind us. So, Randy, what is this?
This is a 1960 Plymouth Sonoramic Commando-powered convertible.
I'm gonna need a dictionary to write that down. That's a long title, isn't it?
It is a long title.
Now, just to explain quickly, Mike, well, you'll see this, but you found this thing. It did not look like this, and you did all the restoration on it.
Yes, I'm the restorer. My dad actually is the one that found the car, and it was in a junk pile in southern Minnesota alongside of a river. And then we pulled it out, collected parts for it, and Randy purchased the car from us, and I did the restoration work on the car. So.
Well, it's unbelievable to see how it went from basically a pile of rust to this. So, and we'll get to more of that story. Right. So, Mike, the story on this is just great, right, Randy?
It is.
I mean, it's just fantastic. So, yeah, you're just not gonna believe it. I mean, it's awesome. So, walk us through how this started and what was actually found. Who did it?
All right, my dad and I actually were walking around in Jefferson, Wisconsin at a swap meet and found a swivel seat that was out of this car sitting there, and we were able to buy the seat. And of course, my dad always asks, where did the seat come from? And a guy said, well, it was a convertible, and that got my dad's ears to perk up because I was raised, if the top don't drop, it's a parts car. So we always looked for convertibles. It didn't matter what shape they were in. So he said, well, it was a convertible, and he did not know what year. It had big fins on it, though, he said, so we kind of had an idea what it would have come out of, a swivel seat of that era. So we made an appointment with him to go down and look at this. These guys were commissioned by the city to clean up this whole, it was a garbage dump area that was on the edge of a riverbank where they had literally pushed the trash over, and cars especially, and it was probably a couple stories high, a lot of garbage, and this was about halfway up in the pile, and that's what the picture is that you first see on the billboard is my dad and the gentleman that was there to clean up the stuff, making a deal on the car. He said if they could get it out of there, he would pay them for the car.
So how much did he pay for the rusted out body?
I don't remember if it was $800-900, something like that.
$875, what he told me. Yeah.
I believe that. So.
Okay, so around about $875,
yeah. Yep.
Somewhere in that, all because he found a pair of swivel seats that then led them to the actual car.
Yes.
Jeez. Okay. So now you get the car, you buy it, you get it home. It's your dad's car at that point.
Yep. Like most of our other projects, if you know my dad, we like to collect projects, and then we'd collect parts for them to do the car, basically.
Okay.
And the idea is to restore them someday. So we'd collected a lot of new old stock, the taillight lenses, new old stock, a lot of the parts that you can't get for the car. And then things that we were worried about during restoration, the big stainless plates on the quarter panels, we had taken several sets off of those, taillight housings, any kind of pot metal stainless trim that would be really tough to get. We picked off in several junkyards through over years that we had been, searching for parts and for all the other cars.
But your dad never restored it.
Nope.
It sat in the back of your yard, and you collected parts for it.
Yep. It got kind of pushed down the wrong. We always have a project going for Dad too as well. Yeah. So, and it just it wasn't on his priority list. So
how long did it sit there before Randy showed up and decided to convince your dad to sell it?
I'm not sure how many years. Randy probably knows the timeline better, but he had mentioned that was high on his priority list to have a 60 Plymouth convertible, and I said, well, Dad has one, why don't you come look at that, and I don't think he was as impressed when he saw it.
All right, so tell us your first impressions of seeing the car.
Well, yeah, and I can pick it up from Michael's point of view a little bit. Is that I knew that Larry, his dad's name is Larry, and I knew that he had a '60 Plymouth convertible in his backyard. And I went to see it, and I was like, oh my God, how are you gonna, make a car out of that thing? It was not pretty, as you can see in the pictures. And Mike says, it's not so tough, I'll do it. And I said, well, okay, if you're willing to do it, then, I'll give it a try. But it still took a little convincing to get Larry to sell it. He wasn't too keen on selling it necessarily. And so I just kind of kept hounding him. As I remember, it took a couple of years of me hounding on him to sell it. And finally he gave in when Michael said that he would restore it. Then that was kind of like the key, because he could make some money selling it to me, and Michael would make money restoring it, and we'd all be happy and it'd all be fun. And so he finally conceded and sold me the car, and off we went. And Michael got started, and here we are today, so.
That's just a crazy story. I mean, going from your dad, and then you end up restoring it. Your dad finds a car, brings it home, saves it, someone else buys it, and then the son restores it. That's just awesome. Okay, so now, Mike, talk us through, so Randy buys it, and you start the restoration process. This is, you have your own company that you do this with.
Yep, Sweet All Classic Car Restoration is the name of my business. So we have a small website, and it's just a small-time business, but I like that because it can give the amount of time to a car that it deserves to do it as perfect as possible.
So hang on a minute, Mike. I got to toot your horn for you because you're being so Minnesotan here. But when you look at the pictures and then you look at this and you look at the awards, this one's won a few awards.
Oh yes, yeah. Yes, it has won awards, and it'll win a whole lot more starting this summer. So we're going to just start campaigning it seriously through the AACA and other events.
Okay, but to go from what we see in the pictures to this, and you did like 99.9% of all the work yourself. You are a man. You're an artist, first of all, and you're a man of extreme talent. So don't sell your little company short, because this is a head turner, right? And it's winning awards, so it's done correctly. So, all right, sorry, I just had to toot your horn for you.
Well, thank you. Yep, but we do have other people that do help me along the way too. I really appreciate all the people that have done, all of our sewing and stuff like that, stainless work,
So some of the stuff that you have to part out.
Yep, things you send out, steering wheels and our dashes, and it's amazing how many companies we deal with to make that.
So what was the hardest part to get on this car?
Usually.
The
hardest part to get was probably the sonoramic stuff for the engine.
I was going to say, my biggest concern when we started this is, this was not, by the way, originally a Sonoramic Commando. Sonoramic Commando refers to the type of engine that's in the car. And that's not what this car was when it was born in the factory. And so we had to find all of those parts to make that. And my biggest concern is, where are we ever going to find those Sonoramic Commando emblems that are on the side of the car? Because they only made just a handful of these cars to begin with. So then you got to find somebody that's parted one out and has those parts and is willing to sell them. And holy cow, I thought, I don't know how we'll ever work this out. But we were fortunate enough to find somebody right here in the Twin Cities that had a pair of them, and he needed a pair of golden Commando ones for his car, which I had from a parts car. And so we were able to work out a trade, and it all worked for both of us. So that's luck.
Yeah, no kidding. But it's nice. You've had a couple cars restored by Mike, and having that circle of owners that are own the same type of cars really makes it a lot easier to find parts, doesn't it?
It helps a lot, yes. Because everybody's got some parts in their garage for some car or another, and yeah.
Okay. All right. So we get the car started, right? Approximately how long, Michael, did it take for you to get to this level?
Most of my projects I like to have in a 2-year rotation, so it works really well with with doing all the, bodywork, paint, engine and interior and stuff works, and to get them all done in 2 years.
That's incredible. In 2 years, you went from that rust bucket to this.
Thank you.
It's just, because, every single piece, the little dings have got to be hammered out. It's either got to be, re-chromed, it's got to be stripped down. It's a lot of, what do you say, half your life is sanding?
Yeah, I have joked that my life has been sanding, yep. So.
I believe it.
But yeah, I had done my research prior to this too, and the floorboards are the same for several years in there, and so we actually had purchased a 61 Plymouth four-door sedan that was a parts car that provided a lot of the sheet metal pieces for the floor.
To fit, okay.
So, and then we had to purchase another parts car, four-door hardtop that we used for some of the other things like the flight sweep deck lid, which people call the toilet seat trunk.
Yes,
a lot of times.
See why.
And then we also used a 6300F to get the rest of the Ram parts. The exhaust manifolds in particular are really tough to get for the Ram system that's under the hood. So.
Okay, so man, it is absolutely fantastic. Now we need to talk about the car itself because, wow, these had some really cool things on them. So let's start with that engine. Tell us about that horsepower. Anything else in particular about the engine?
Well, like I was saying, they call it sonoramic commando power, which is whatever that means. I don't know, but it's cool. It makes you feel like a little manly just saying it. But it's a cross ram engine, which means it has two 4-barrel carburetors clear out at the fender wells with these long runners that carry that air fuel mixture, that charge in these runners. And as the valves open and close, it's timed such that that fuel air charge hits those valves just as they open and forces into the combustion chamber a full charge of, and when the piston comes up, it makes a big bang. That's the bottom line. Lots of torque.
Okay, and so we'll back up. I'm assuming it was a V8.
It's a V8, 330 horsepower. Is that right, or 335?
I think there were 335.
335 might be. Yeah.
This one in particular was a 335 because they did sonoramics in two different engine sizes.
Okay.
One of them is a 361 V8, and this one is a 383.
Okay.
And the 383s are actually very rare. They didn't put that many of them in if you look at all of the records.
There's the bigger the two engines and more rare.
They look identical to the average person. Looking at them physically, dimensions and everything are identical, but
horsepower changes.
Yes, horsepower changes in.
Okay. All right, so you got the engine in, the one that you wanted, okay? Different from what the car came with, but still Fury appropriate.
A correct 60 383 motor.
And then, okay, what about the transmission?
It's a 3-speed torque flight, and I should inject here, by the way, as long as this car, I felt as long as it was in a junk pile, it sort of has no business being alive in the first place, that I felt that we could take some creative liberties with it, as far as the engine and the colors and the transmission and stuff like that. So I sort of built what I wanted, but yet I stayed within the confines of what could have been possible in 1960 with Plymouth. You could have ordered a car just like this, and this is exactly how it would look. So.
Well, I always say it's up to the man or person, woman, whoever, who owns the vehicle. It's like a canvas, right? You're the artist. You get to develop the vision, and you get to make it happen, Michael, right?
Yes, thank you. That's what I do. Yeah. So
that's true to a degree with a lot of cars, but with some cars, that's not really true. They need to be restored to exactly the way the factory made them without any alterations because they're so rare and so valuable. And there's a lot of Chryslers, and I'm thinking of Chrysler letter cars in particular, that fits into that group of, to change them and modify them is risky business. It's a little bit sinful. So
well, this is interesting coming from the same guy Now pick a side of the wall and stick to it. I'm joking. I'm joking. But typically, don't you find, Randy, that people are either on one side or the other, right? They're either original or you can modify them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of that, and to each his own and
Right.
stuff like that. There's a million cars for a million tastes. So
And-
it's all good. Yeah.
And that's well said. A million cars for a million different tastes. Do what you want with your car. But yeah, this was a complete rust. Never should have been in the crusher, and would have been shortly had you not rescued it. So whatever you did, you brought back a piece of junk
Right.
to life,
Right.
literally, right? Okay. Now these had some really unique dashboards. So can we talk about the whole dashboard setup?
Yep.
All right, so here's those swivel seats that is what was the first cause of finding this car. I love those.
Swivel seats were touted by Chrysler as so a lady could maintain her dignity during ingress and egress. I happen to have a friend that's a little bit overweight, and it works out real well for him to get in and out of the car, too.
Okay, so let's just start kind of from the left, maybe lower part down
We'll
here.
start here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
This, the speedometer here is a ribbon speedometer, and little bars as you go faster and faster, and we can film this a little later, there's little bars that pop up. Now from 0 to about 30 miles an hour, they pop up green. And then as you go past 30, they start coming up yellow. And then as you get up around 50 or 55, then they start coming up red. This whole speedometer unit, as you can see, is kind of a pod that sits on top of the dash. Chrysler called that Teleview.
Interesting.
The steering wheel is an option. The standard steering wheel was round and not quite as ornate as this with the sparkles and all that. This was called the Aero steering wheel, A-E-R-O.
Man. I
Very
mean,
space age, very Jetsons-like.
absolutely. Okay, let's go down here to talk about your transmission and then some of the gauges you got.
Well, once again, we have a push-button transmission where you select your gears here as opposed to a lever on the side. We have a fuel gauge, a clock that is running, you'll notice. We have a temperature gauge, and then here's your heat and ventilation controls. You slide this slider to get warmer or cooler and select here.
Okay, so did this have air conditioning then?
This one didn't have air, no.
Okay. It'd be just outside air being vented in.
Right, yes.
Okay, so tell us about what you got down here.
Well, we have a remote controlled mirror that controls that mirror.
Okay.
Of course, headlights. Here's the top control, the power convertible top.
Okay.
Wipers, key, radio, AM radio. Again, we have Conelrad system here. Is the civil defense warning system for in the event of a nuclear attack that we had from 1951 to 1963.
All right, so you could tune to either one of those stations marked with the triangle and then get the emergency information you needed.
Exactly, that's exactly it. Yep.
Man, and then this was a horn right here.
Yes, it is.
You gotta like those horns. Now, interesting stripes on the below the dashboard here.
Yes.
It's just interesting design. Okay. Now the door cards are really interesting. This is Michael. You had talked about this as being a 3D.
Yeah, yep. They actually had two options on the door panels. You could get what they called a flat and a puffy, and this is the puffy. It's like you said, 3D. It comes off of the door. It's really a neat door panel, and all of the heat seam stitching and stuff that's in there as well. So, like I said, that's our main trouble right there. We order those when I start the car and barely get them in time to finish usually.
Now the seats were redone as well, but this would have been a color combination that was available with the paint scheme that you see.
This is all actual original material that like SMS upholstery provides for us to reproduce them in the correct colors and all the correct tinsel around the edges, and
I love all that in the tinsel and the glint. I'm assuming it's tinsel in the seats.
in the weave. Yep, that's really
And you always found if you wore shorts, they were a little uncomfortable.
rough.
I mean, my grandfather had cars with that in there, and I remember going, "This is why. This is just not all that comfortable."
Nate, I'd like to tell you the story of the color of this car too. It's kind of interesting. When Michael asked me what color I wanted to be painted, I said, I want it to be painted the color of those Kraft caramels. When we were little kids, we had Kraft caramels. They still make them to this day. I said, I want that caramel color. And so he said, well, okay. And by the way, Plymouth did offer a caramel color like this, so it's not far off from what Plymouth actually offered. But anyway, he moved the car along and he got it painted, and the paint was done. And he called me up and he says, you probably should come and look at this car. And I said, why? He said, because I don't really like the color, and my wife doesn't like it, my dad doesn't like it, nobody likes it, and they think that this is going to be an ugly car. And I said, well, I don't need to come and look at it. I know what I've got. And you just hang in there and just finish it the way I say, and you'll all be surprised. So anyway, so we just went ahead and got all the upholstery and all that and got it all put together, and now I take it to car shows and people are like, my God, that color is incredible. So that's kind of my funny story, is that, you know, you just go ahead with what you got in your mind and it'll turn out. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad Michael was kind of subtle with you. Your color choice sucks.
Yeah, he pretty much, yeah.
Right?
Just wanted to make sure that he was okay with it before we went ahead. So any color done in a really nice job looks really good, I think. So.
And it does. It looks great on the car. It looks
actually
fantastic.
One of my favorite cars.
Okay, so you know, I just looking at all this chrome work. I mean, that had to have. It must have been a ton of work to get all that out and to get all the dings out and to re-chrome it. And I mean, is any of it stainless steel, or is it all?
Yeah, these large plates are huge stainless pieces, and they took a lot of rock chips, as you can imagine. So finding really nice ones to work with were difficult, and then all the rest of the parts too. Yes, hopefully most of them came off of parts cars, except for the convertible supplied the the long quarter strips and stuff that are convertible or hardtop only, really tough to find. So.
All right, so let's talk about the engine.
The way this cross ram setup works, like I was explaining earlier, is you have a 4-barrel carburetor at each side of the wheel wells. Now, when this car is running, even when it's just idling, 2 of the barrels on both carburetors are always feeding gas to the engine, because this carburetor feeds this side of the engine and this carburetor feeds this side of the engine. Therefore, it requires that both carburetors are always feeding gas. That means that it goes through gas like holy cow, even when you're idling. And when you stand on it, it goes through it really fast. So that's kind of a neat feature of this car. But you know, I happen to like burning gas, and I want to thank all the Prius owners out there for saving gas, because I need a lot of it. So.
My first look at this was like, where are the plugs? I thought it was like a new car. You know, some of them are really tough to get at the plugs. Well, Chrysler had a really neat deal where these inner wheel well cutouts are removable, and that is sonoramic only. That they unbolt. So you jack up the car, take the wheel off, unbolt the panel, and actually you can access the back plugs, which would not normally be able to be gotten to.
No, you have to pull the engine.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, wow. It's a huge job. So
interesting engineering.
So yeah, doing it that way actually is quite easy to change the plugs in here. So
I love the plastic bag for the windshield wiper fluid.
Yeah. Please notice also that when Michael restores cars, we kind of go to the nth to make them as realistic and as correct as we possibly can. Back in these days when these cars were built, they didn't have the notched fan belts that we use nowadays, the modern type belts. They were smooth like this. Belts like that are hard to find and hard to buy, but we try to restore them with as correct as possible, with the correct type belts, the correct type hoses, clamps, all those sorts of things. All the nuts and bolts, the right color, the right loss level, on and on and on and on.
There's a ton of detail in that.
There's a ton, yes.
And thank goodness Michael's a walking encyclopedia.
He is. He's an encyclopedia.
I like that word. We may make that new word. Well, I tell you what, Randy, thank you again so much, and Mike, for having us out today, taking us around this amazing rust bucket find and the restoration of it. We sure appreciate it.
It's truly a car that doesn't deserve to be alive, but here it is. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. And thanks for watching.